The South Pole, also known as the Geographic South Pole or Terrestrial South Pole, is one of the 2 points where the Earth's axis of rotation intersects its surface. It is the southernmost point on the surface of the Earth and lies on the opposite side of the Earth from the North Pole. Situated on the continent of Antarctica, it is the site of the United States Amundsen-Scott South Pole Station, which was established in 1956 and has been permanently staffed since that year. The geographic South Pole should not be confused with the South Magnetic Pole, which is defined based on the Earth's magnetic field. Geography. For most purposes, the geographic South Pole is defined as the southern point of the 2 points where the Earth's axis of rotation intersects its surface. However, the Earth's axis of rotation is actually subject to very small wobbles, so this definition is not adequate for very precise work. The geographic coordinates of the South Pole are usually given simply as 90 degrees south, since its longitude is geometrically undefined and irrelevant. When a longitude is desired, it may be given as 0 degrees. At the South Pole, all directions face north. For this reason, directions at the pole are given relative to grid north, which points northwards along the prime meridian. Along tight latitude circles, clockwise is east and counterclockwise is west, opposite the way it is at the North Pole. The geographic South Pole is located on the continent of Antarctica. It sits atop a featureless, barren, windswept and icy plateau at an altitude of 2,835 meters above sea level, and is located about 1,300 kilometers from the nearest open-sea Bay of Wales. The ice is estimated to be about 2,700 meters thick at the pole, so the land surface under the ice sheet is actually near sea level. The polar ice sheet is moving at a rate of roughly 10 meters per year in a direction between 37 degrees and 40 degrees west of grid north, down towards the Weddell Sea. Therefore, the position of the station and other artificial features relative to the geographic pole gradually shift over time. The geographic South Pole is marked by a ceremony on New Year's Day in which a small sign and the American flag are moved. A newly revealed annual stake is placed in the ice pack, which are positioned each year to compensate for the movement of the ice. The sign records the respective dates that Roald Amundsen and Robert F. Scott reached the pole, followed by a short quotation from each man, and gives the elevation as 9,301 ft. The current stake has the position of the planet's sun and moon on January 1st, as well as a copper star marking the pole. Ceremonial South Pole. The ceremonial South Pole is an area set aside for photo opportunities at the South Pole Station. It is located around 180 meters from the geographic South Pole, and consists of a metallic sphere on a short bamboo pole, surrounded by the flags of the original Antarctic Treaty signatory states. Historic monuments. Amundsen's tent. The tent was erected by the Norwegian expedition led by Roald Amundsen on its arrival on the 14th of December 1911. It is currently buried beneath the snow and ice in the vicinity of the pole. It has been designated a historic site to monument following a proposal by Norway to the Antarctic Treaty Consultative Meeting. The precise location of the tent is unknown, but based on calculations of the rate of movement of the ice and the accumulation of snow, it is believed as of 2010 to lie between 1.8 and 2.5 kilometers from the pole at a depth of 17 meters below the present surface. Argentine flag pole. A flagpole erected at the South Geographical Pole in December 1965 by the first Argentine overland polar expedition has been designated a historic site a monument following a proposal by Argentina to the Antarctic Treaty Consultative Meeting. Exploration. See also, History of Antarctica, List of Antarctic expeditions, Heroic Age of Antarctic Exploration and Farthest South. In 1820, several expeditions claimed to have been the first to have sighted Antarctica, with the very first being the Russian expedition led by Ferdinand Bellingshausen and Mikhail Lazarev. The first landing was probably just over a year later when American Captain John Davis, a sealer, set foot on the ice. The basic geography of the Antarctic coastline was not understood until the mid to late 19th century. American naval officer Charles Wilkes claimed that Antarctica was a new continent based on his exploration in 1839–40, while James Clark Ross, in his expedition of 1839–43, hoped that he might be able to sail all the way to the South Pole. 1900 to 1950, the first attempt to find a route from the Antarctic coastline to the South Pole was made by British explorer Robert Falcon-Scott on the Discovery Expedition of 1901–04. Scott, accompanied by Ernest Shackleton and Edward Wilson, set out with the aim of traveling as far south as possible, and on the 31st of December 1902, reached 82 degrees 16'. Shackleton later returned to Antarctica as leader of the British Antarctic Expedition in a bid to reach the pole. On the 9th of January 1909, with 3 companions, he reached 88 degrees 23', 112 statute miles from the pole, before being forced to turn back. The first men to reach the geographic South Pole were the Norwegian Roald Amundsen and his party on December 14, 1911. Amundsen named his camp Polheim and the entire plateau surrounding the pole King Haakon VII Vidda in honor of King Haakon VII of Norway. Robert Falcon-Scott returned to Antarctica with his second expedition, the Terra Nova expedition. Initially unaware of Amundsen's secretive expedition, Scott and 4 other men reached the South Pole on January 17, 1912, 34 days after Amundsen. On the return trip, Scott and his 4 companions all died of starvation and extreme cold. In 1914, Ernest Shackleton's Imperial Transantarctic Expedition set out with the goal of crossing Antarctica via the South Pole, but his ship, the Endurance, was frozen in pack ice and sank 11 months later. The overland journey was never made. U.S. Admiral Richard Evelyn Byrd, with the assistance of his first pilot Bernd Balken, became the first person to fly over the South Pole on November 29, 1928. 1950 present. It was not until the 31st of October 1956 that humans once again set foot at the South Pole, when a party led by Admiral George J. Dufek of the U.S. Navy landed there in an R-45L Skytrain aircraft. The U.S. Amundsen-Scott South Pole Station was established by Air Over 1956-1957 for the International Geophysical Year and has been continuously staffed since then by research and support personnel. After Amundsen and Scott, the next people to reach the South Pole overland were Edmund Hillary and Vivian Fuchs and the respective parties. During the Commonwealth Trans-Antarctic Expedition, there have been many subsequent expeditions to arrive at the South Pole by surface transportation, including those by Havilah, Crary and Fiennes. Subsequent to the establishment, in 1987, of the Logistics Support Base at Patriot Hills Base Camp, the South Pole became more accessible to non-government expeditions. On December 30, 1989, Arvid Fuchs and Reinhold Messner were the first to traverse Antarctica via the South Pole without animal or motorized help, using only skis and the help of wind. The fastest unsupported journey to the geographic South Pole from the ocean is 24 days and 1 hour from Hercules Inlet and was set in 2011 by Norwegian adventurer Christian Eide, who beat the previous solo record set in 2009 by American Todd Carmichael of 39 days and 7 hours, and the previous group record also set in 2009 of 33 days and 23 hours. In the 2011-12 summer, separate expeditions by Norwegian Alexander Gamma and Australians James Castration and Justin Jones jointly claimed the first unsupported trek, without dogs or kites, from the Antarctic coast to the South Pole and back. The two expeditions started from Hercules Inlet a day apart, with Gamma starting first, but completing according to plan the last few kilometers together. As Gamma traveled alone, he thus simultaneously became the first to complete the task solo. Climate and day and night. See also Climate of Antarctica, midnight sun and polar night. During the southern winter, the South Pole receives no sunlight at all, and from May to July, between extended periods of twilight, it is completely dark. In the summer, the sun is continuously above the horizon and appears to move in a counterclockwise circle. However, it is always low in the sky, reaching a maximum of 23.5 degrees in December. Much of the sunlight that does reach the surface is reflected by the white snow. This lack of warmth from the sun, combined with the high altitude, means that the South Pole has one of the coldest climates on Earth. Temperatures at the South Pole are much lower than at the North Pole, primarily because the South Pole is located at altitude in the middle of a continental landmass, while the North Pole is at sea level in the middle of an ocean, which acts as a reservoir of heat. In midsummer, as the sun reaches its maximum elevation of about 23.5 degrees, high temperatures at the South Pole in January average at minus 25.9 degrees Celsius. As the 6-month day wears on and the sun gets lower, temperatures drop as well. They reach minus 45 degrees Celsius around sunset and sunrise. In midwinter, the average temperature remains steady at around minus 58 degrees Celsius. The highest temperature ever recorded at the Amundsen-Scott South Pole Station was minus 12.3 degrees Celsius on Christmas Day 2011, and the lowest was minus 82.8 degrees Celsius on June 23, 1982 at Vostok Station on July 21, 1983, though minus 93.2 degrees Celsius was measured indirectly by satellite in East Antarctica between Dome A and Dome F in August 2010. The South Pole has a desert climate, almost never receiving any precipitation. Air humidity is near zero. However, high winds can cause the blowing of snowfall, and the accumulation of snow amounts to about 20 centimeters per year. The former dome seen in pictures of the Amundsen-Scott station is partially buried due to snowstorms, and the entrance to the dome had to be regularly bulldozed to uncover it. More recent buildings are raised on stilts so that the snow does not build up against the sides of them. Time. In most places on Earth, local time is determined by longitude, such that the time of day is more or less synchronized to the position of the sun in the sky. This line of reasoning fails at the South Pole, where the sun rises and sets only once per year, and all lines of longitude, and hence all time zones, converge. There is no a priori reason for placing the South Pole in any particular time zone, but as a matter of practical convenience, the Amundsen-Scott South Pole Station keeps New Zealand time. This is because the US flies its resupply missions out of McMurdo Station, which is supplied from Christchurch, New Zealand. Flora and fauna. Due to its exceptionally harsh climate, there are no native resident plants or animals at the South Pole. Remarkably, though, of course, South Polar skuas and snow petrels are occasionally seen there. In 2000 it was reported that microbes had been detected living in the South Pole ice, though scientists think it is unlikely that they evolved in Antarctica. In August 2014, scientists reported finding thousands of different types of microorganisms in Lake Whillans, a large body of water buried 800 meters under the Antarctic ice sheet.